Ashes to Ashes by Rich von Holt. Sophia Del Mar arrived at the bustling train station, her reddish hair neatly pinned in a tight bun. The smart gray blazer and matching skirt, crisp white blouse, and sleek tan overcoat projected an air of refined elegance. As the attendant Alex opened her car door, Sophia stepped out gracefully, her heels clicking on the cobblestone. "Good morning, Mrs. Del Mar. How are you this morning?" Alex greeted her with the tip of his cap, his weathered face creasing into a polite smile. "I'm good. Thank you, Alex. How are you today?" Sophia replied, her melodic French accent lending a sophisticated lilt to her words. "My day's busy, but good so far, Mrs. Del Mar. Thank you for asking." Alex popped the trunk and swiftly unloaded her monogrammed luggage onto a gleaming brass cart, the bags thudding dully as he stacked them. Shutting the driver's side door with a solid clunk, he announced, "Your carriage is almost ready for you. Housekeeping is finishing now." He grimaced apologetically. "I'm apologize for the inconvenience this morning. The station master has had his hands full since the new line opened." Sophia waved off his concern with a graceful flick of her wrist. "That's okay, Alex. I'll go into the station and look around for a while. Maybe pick up something to read. How much longer do you think they'll need?" As if on cue, the carriage butler Mr. Gallagher emerged from the employee entrance, his polished shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. Alex beckoned to him. "Mr. Gallagher, please take these bags to Mrs. Del Mar's carriage. Check with housekeeping to see how much more time they'll need to finish and let me know." "Morning, Mrs. Del Mar," Mr. Gallagher greeted her, doffing his cap. "Good morning, Mr. Gallagher," Sophia returned warmly. Gripping the handles, Mr. Gallagher wheeled the laden cart towards the arched employee door. He glanced back at Alex and tipped his cap to Sophia once more. "Okay. See you on board, Mrs. Del Mar." "Thanks, guys." With a gracious wave, Sophia pivoted smoothly and strode towards the soaring station entrance, her heels tapping a staccato beat. Ornate glass doors swooshed open automatically, ushering her into the cavernous space scented with oil and hot metal. Voices and footsteps echoed off the vaulted ceiling as passengers swarmed the platforms. Sunlight slanted through the skylights, setting dust motes aglow. Sophia surveyed the nostalgic scene, savoring the bittersweet tug of memories, her first ride as a girl, her father's strong hand gripping hers. Shaking off the reverie, she squared her shoulders and made her way to the newsstand, determined to lose herself in the pages of a gripping novel during the long journey ahead. Sophia stood before the expansive monitor in the sundry store, a beverage in hand. With deft swipes, she navigated the interactive display, images blurring as they flashed by. An intriguing title caught her eye. She tapped it, scanning the description, and confirmed her purchase with a decisive touch. Her watch chimed melodically, signaling the book's delivery. The cashier bid her a pleasant day, but Sophia returned the sentiment with a friendly wave as she exited the store. Another chime, this time a video call. Alex's face filled the small screen. "Hi, Mrs. Del Mar. Your carriage is ready for you now. You can meet Mr. Gallagher by the security entrance. He'll escort you from there. Have a good trip, ma'am." "Thank you, Alex. Have a nice day," Sophia replied, lowering her arm. As she approached the security area, a commotion erupted. Two burly guards grappled with a flailing woman, dragging her towards the waiting area. Sophia paused, allowing the struggling trio to pass, the woman's shrieks fading as the door slammed shut behind them. Inside her private carriage, Sophia sank into the plush recliner. The PA system crackled to life, the station master's voice booming. "All aboard! Last call for boarding. New York to Paris departing now." Sophia's tablet chimed, a video call from her daughter. Hope's cherubic face filled the screen, her tousled hair framing a megawatt smile. "Hi, Mommy. Are you at Mimet's yet?" "No, Angel, I haven't left the station yet. The station master just announced that we're getting ready to depart. You called at the perfect time. Mommy, don't forget to bring me a gourmandise constellation with extra marmalade when you come home tomorrow, okay? Give Mime a hug for me." Sophia chuckled. I won't forget. I know you love your patisseries, don't you? Yeah! Hope squealed, bouncing with excitement. Mr. Gallagher entered from the rear of the carriage. Mrs. Delmar, we're departing. Is there anything you need before we get underway? No, Mr. Gallagher, thank you. I'm fine, Sophia assured him. Very well, ma'am. If you need anything, I'll be in the rear of the carriage preparing the documents for our arrival. As he left, Sophia refocused on her daughter. Okay, sweetheart. Mommy has to go now. We're about to depart. I'll call when I get to Paris. You have a great day, and remember, Mommy loves her sweet angel. I love you too, Mommy. Au revoir. Hope blew a kiss at the screen. Au revoir, Angel, Sophia laughed, ending the call. Setting the tablet aside, she withdrew a well-worn rosary from her pocket. Closing her eyes, she pressed the cool metal crucifix to her lips as the train shuddered to life, slowly gathering speed. The rhythmic clacking of the wheels against the tracks formed a soothing counterpoint to her whispered prayers as the cityscape blurred past the window, giving way to rolling countryside. Beneath the waves, a vibrant world teemed with life. Schools of iridescent fish darted through forests of undulating kelp, while sleek sharks cruised the depths, their silhouettes barely visible in the blue-tinged gloom. Amidst this aquatic wonderland, a serpentine structure snaked along the ocean floor, the transparent train tube, a marvel of modern engineering. Inside the tube, the train hurtled forward at breakneck speed, its aerodynamic form slicing through the water like a gleaming torpedo. The only sound was the muffled hum of the powerful engines as they propelled the vessel toward its destination. In the plush confines of Mrs. Delmar's private carriage, Mr. Gallagher sipped a steaming beverage, his brow furrowed in concentration as he meticulously completed the international documents. The scratching of his pen and the rustling of papers formed a soothing background noise. Across from him, Mrs. Delmar reclined in her chair, a faith-based book resting in her lap. As the words blurred before her heavy-lidded eyes, she allowed them to drift shut, surrendering to the pull of sleep. The book slipped from her grasp, nestling in the folds of her skirt. Deep beneath the train, a sinister development unfolded. From a hairline fracture in the tube's seam, a steady stream of bubbles rose, dancing towards the distant surface. The crack widened, the edges peeling back like the petals of a grotesque flower. With a sickening crunch, the tube gave way, collapsing in on itself as the unrelenting pressure of the ocean rushed in. The train, caught in the violent deluge, lurched forward, careening off the tracks and plunging into the open sea. Inside, passengers screamed as they were tossed about like rag dolls, their terror mingling with the shriek of twisting metal and the roar of rushing water. Far above, the sun-dappled surface of the ocean betrayed no hint of the catastrophe unfolding below. The gentle waves lapped at the sides of boats, their occupants blissfully unaware of the lives being forever altered in the depths. Only a faint disturbance, a patch of churning foam, hinted at the chaos beneath, bubbles rising from the stricken train, carrying with them the last breaths of the doomed passengers. As the train sank deeper into the abyss, the once vibrant world of the ocean floor became a watery grave. The twisted remains of the tube, now a gaping wound in the seabed, stood as a haunting monument to the fragility of human life and the power of the untamable sea. 6 years had passed since that fateful day, yet the wounds still felt fresh. The sprawling Delmar estate, once a beacon of warmth and joy, now seemed shrouded in a veil of melancholy. Christmas lights, their twinkling glow muted by the lush foliage, cast an eerie pall over the grounds, as if even the holiday cheer was reluctant to penetrate the somber atmosphere. Inside, a television droned on in the empty living room, the 24-hour news channel a constant reminder of the world's tragedies. Upstairs, Ellington Delmar, now 18, tossed fitfully in his bed, his lanky frame tangled in the sheets. Sleep eluded him, as it often did these days. With a sigh, he rose, his bare feet padding across the plush carpet to his desk. He snatched a pack of cards and returned to his bed, seeking solace in the mindless repetition of solitaire. Down the hall, Hope's whimpers pierced the night, crescendoing into heart-wrenching sobs. Ellington's head snapped up, the cards forgotten. In a heartbeat, he was out the door, his long strides carrying him to his sister's room. Hope, just 13, thrashed in her bed, the covers strewn aside. Ellington perched on the edge of the mattress, drawing her into his embrace. "Hope, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice low and soothing. "I had another nightmare about Mom," Hope hiccuped, her tears soaking his shirt. "I miss her so much, and I want her to come home." Ellington's throat tightened. "I know you do, Hope. We all miss Mom, but she can't come back. She's in heaven with Jesus now." Hope pulled back, her eyes flashing with a mix of grief and frustration. "You don't have to say it like that. I'm not a baby. I know she's dead, but I want her here with us. Jesus could send her back if he wanted to, couldn't he?" "He could, yeah," Ellington conceded, "but he won't. That's not how it works, Hope. You know that. He's not a genie in a bottle." Hope's lower lip trembled. Why'd she have to be on that train that day? Why did he take her from us? If she were still here, I wouldn't have to go to Sucky Fallbrook. I hate that school. Ellington sighed, his heart heavy. I can't say why she died, or why it was her time. Maybe it's because God's doing a work in you, and this is the first part of your journey. I know, but that doesn't help right now. I want her back. Hope's voice cracked as a fresh wave of sobs racked her small frame. They sat in the darkness, Hope's tears soaking Ellington's shoulder as he stroked her hair, his lips brushing her forehead. "Shh, can I get you something? Would a drink of water help? Or maybe some milk?" Hope sniffled, nodding. "Yes, I'd like a drink of milk, please." "Okay, I'll be right back." Ellington rose, his right eyebrow twitching, a nervous tic he'd developed in the aftermath of their mother's death. As he made his way downstairs, the weight of his own grief pressed down on him, threatening to crush his chest. But he had to be strong for Hope's sake. She needed him now more than ever, and he'd be damned if he let her down. Ellington padded through the silent house, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The flickering glow of the television caught his eye, and he paused, flicking it off with a sigh. He lingered by the expansive windows, his gaze drawn to the swaying trees, their leaves rustling in the gentle night breeze. In the kitchen, he poured a half glass of milk, the liquid sloshing against the sides as he slid it into the microwave. The hum of the appliance filled the room, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that had settled over the estate. Returning to Hope's room, glass in hand, Ellington found her fast asleep, her tear-stained face peaceful in slumber. He took a sip of the warm milk, the creamy sweetness coating his tongue before slipping out, leaving her to her dreams. Back in his own room, Ellington settled at his desk, the glow of his laptop illuminating his features. His fingers flew across the keys, typing Asperger's syndrome into the search bar. The screen filled with information, and he leaned in, his eyes scanning the text, searching for answers to the questions that plagued him. Outside, the night sky flickered with distant lightning, the rumble of thunder a low, ominous growl. The Del Mar estate, once a haven of laughter and love, now seemed shrouded in an aura of despair, as if the very walls were mourning the loss of Sophia. Deep within the bowels of the mansion, Daniel Del Mar hunched over his computer, his salt and pepper goatee flecked with bits of food and his thin hair greasy and unkempt. The lab, a cacophony of whirring machines and beeping monitors, was littered with crumpled papers, empty pill bottles, and discarded energy drink cans. An overflowing ashtray, the cigarette butts spilling onto the desk, sat beside his keyboard, a testament to the countless hours he'd spent toiling away. Rising from his chair, Daniel strode purposefully to the vault, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. With reverent hands, he plucked a jar from the shelf, the yellow stone within pulsing with an otherworldly glow. He carried it to the main room, setting it down on a table beside an all-white, cube-shaped time machine. With deft movements, Daniel placed the stone inside the machine, flicking a switch with a satisfying click. The machine hummed to life, its lights blinking in a mesmerizing pattern. He returned to his computer, his fingers flying across the keys as he inputted commands, his eyes locked on the screen. "Come on, baby. Work," he muttered, his voice hoarse with desperation. "Do what I need." The machine beeped and sputtered, its lights flickering erratically. Daniel leaned forward, his nose nearly touching the screen. "That's it. Closer. Keep going." Suddenly, the screen froze, the loading wheel spinning endlessly. The computer locked up and the time machine whirred to a stop, plunging the lab into an eerie silence. "Bullshit!" Daniel slammed his fist on the desk, sending papers and pill bottles flying. "You bitch! What the hell am I missing? Ugh!" He stalked over to the machine, yanking the stone from its depths. With a growl of frustration, he returned it to the vault, slamming the door with a resounding clang. Slumping against the wall, Daniel buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. 6 years of tireless work, of sleepless nights and countless failures, and still, he was no closer to his goal. The weight of his grief, of the gaping hole Sophia's death had left in his heart, threatened to crush him. But he couldn't give up. Not now. Not when he was so close. He would bring her back, no matter the cost. Daniel stalked to his desk, his movements jerky with barely suppressed rage. With trembling fingers, he rolled a cigarette, the tobacco spilling onto the cluttered surface. He brought it to his lips, inhaling deeply, the acrid smoke filling his lungs. Setting the cigarette in the ashtray, he glared at the computer screen, the lines of code blurring before his exhausted eyes. "Why won't you work?" he growled, his voice raw with frustration. "I need you to do what I need you to do." The machine remained silent, mocking him with its inactivity. Daniel's hand curled into a fist, his knuckles turning white. In a burst of fury, he seized the monitor, yanking it from its perch. With a roar, he hurled it to the floor, the sound of shattering glass and splintering plastic echoing through the lab. "Bitch!" he spat, his chest heaving. He snatched the cigarette from the ashtray, taking a final furious drag before crushing it beneath his heel. The embers flared briefly, then died, leaving behind a smear of ash on the concrete. Daniel spun on his heel and stormed out of the lab, the door slamming behind him with a resounding bang. The lab fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of the remaining machines and the distant tick of a clock. The shattered remains of the monitor lay scattered across the floor, a testament to Daniel's mounting desperation. For 6 long years, he had poured every ounce of his being into this project, sacrificing his health, his sanity, and his relationships in the pursuit of the impossible. But now, as he stood amidst the wreckage of his life's work, the weight of his failures threatened to crush him. The time machine, the key to bringing Sophia back, remained stubbornly inert, taunting him with its refusal to function. Daniel dragged a hand down his face, his fingers rasping against the stubble on his cheeks. He knew he was unraveling, the threads of his sanity fraying with each passing day. But he couldn't stop, couldn't give up, not when he was so close. He had to keep trying, had to find a way to make the machine work. For Sophia, for their children, for the life they had once shared. He would bring her back, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. With a final, anguished glance at the ruins of his lab, Daniel turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Tomorrow, he would start again, rebuild what he had destroyed, and keep pushing forward. There was no other choice. Ellington stood in line at the bustling coffee shop, his eyes glued to his phone as he waited his turn. The crisp spring air wafted through the open door, carrying with it the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries. The pretty Latina barista, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, glanced up from her register, her eyes widening in recognition. "Oh, hi," she greeted him with a warm smile. "I haven't seen you in a couple weeks." Ellington, caught off guard, fumbled with his phone, a shy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I've been busy with work and school," he mumbled, avoiding her gaze. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice as smooth as the coffee she poured. Just a coffee. Regular, please. Large." Ellington's words came out in a rush, his nerves getting the better of him. The barista nodded, her deft hands already reaching for the pot. She poured the steaming liquid into a large cup, the rich aroma wafting up to fill the space between them. Setting the cup in front of him, she flashed him another smile. "Here you go. Well, I hope to see you more often." "Me too," Ellington replied, his cheeks flushing slightly. "See you later." He grabbed his coffee and hurried out of the shop, his heart pounding in his chest. Back at the Del Mar estate, Ellington settled into his work desk, his mind still replaying the interaction with the barista. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts, and rose to retrieve his phone from the living room. "Okay, Google. Call Sandra at the office," he commanded, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Okay, I'm calling Sandra at the office," the AI responded. "Do you want a voice or video call?" "Video," Ellington replied, already making his way to the kitchen. The phone rang twice before Sandra's face appeared on the screen, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Good morning, Martek. Mr. Del Mar's office," she greeted him, her voice crisp and professional. "Good morning, Sandra," Ellington replied, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Please cancel any appointments that I have for the day. I'll be working remotely." Sandra's brow furrowed slightly. "Sure, but you have Dr. Beaumont in the early afternoon. Don't you think you should at least keep him?" Ellington sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Ugh, yes, I probably should keep him. What time is he?" Sandra clicked through the calendar on her computer, her fingers flying over the keys. "1 sec. He's at 2 o'clock. 2, huh? All right, I'll keep it." Ellington conceded, his shoulders sagging slightly. "I just sent a reminder to your phone," Sandra informed him, her tone efficient. "Anything else for now?" Ellington glanced at his phone, the reminder already flashing on the screen. "Nope, just got it. Thanks, Sandra. Hold down the fort. If you need anything, buzz me. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow." "Have a good day, Mr. Del Mar." "Bye." Sandra's face disappeared from the screen, and Ellington ended the call, his eyes still fixed on his phone. "Okay, Google, let's get to work," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Send Hope a text letting her know I can't meet her today. Ask her if Thursday is good. Let's hear some music." "Text sent," the AI confirmed. "What kind of music would you like to hear?" "Something calm this morning," Ellington replied, settling into his chair behind the desk. Soft music filled the apartment, the gentle notes washing over him as he woke his computer. The screen flared to life, displaying the latest Martek concept cars and alternative fuel projects. Ellington's phone chimed and he glanced over at it, a small smile tugging at his lips as he read Hope's response. "Thursday is fine. Love you, H." Ellington's heart swelled with affection for his sister, and he tapped out a quick reply before turning his attention back to his work, the music and the promise of a new day propelling him forward. Ellington hunched over his workbench in the Martek lab, his brow furrowed in concentration as he tinkered with the latest prototype. The room hummed with the quiet whir of machinery, the only sound breaking the stillness. In the hallway outside, Hope's footsteps echoed off the polished floor as she made her way towards the new technology door. She paused, her gaze flicking up to the camera mounted above the frame. With a practiced motion, she pressed the button on the wall, the buzz of the doorbell reverberating through the lab. Ellington's head snapped up, his eyes darting to the monitors. Hope's face filled the screen, her expression a mix of impatience and amusement. He reached over and pressed the intercom button, the door clicking open with a soft whoosh. "Thanks, Elle," Hope grinned as she stepped inside, her eyes sweeping over the cluttered workbenches and scattered tools. "Stretching those nerd muscles, huh? Have you seen the sun today yet?" Ellington straightened, a wry smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Sun? Is it nice out? You remember what MIT stands for, don't you?" "Yep," Hope nodded, her eyes sparkling with mischief. In unison, they chanted, "Me into technology!" Their laughter filled the lab, bouncing off the metal surfaces. Hope stepped forward, wrapping her brother in a quick hug before pulling back, her expression turning serious. "You're such a nerd. So are you gonna stay in here all day again? Or do you want to see some sunlight and take me to lunch like you said?" Ellington sighed, his gaze drifting back to the prototype on the bench. "I'm trying to save the planet, you know." Hope rolled her eyes, her tone teasing. "Please, why don't you fire up your final semester's flying car again? You were set to make automotive accident history with that one." Ellington's eyes narrowed, a flash of irritation crossing his features. "Yeah, well, flying car looked good on paper. You even have to admit that. I think this new fuel could do it, though." He paused, a sly grin spreading across his face. "Maybe if I added some glitter and a unicorn horn, that might do the trick, huh? What do you think?" Hope's face flushed, her eyes flashing with anger. "Hey, Elle. Just because I'm not on track to graduate early from a fancy school doesn't mean I'm a stupid teenager. I know stuff you don't even know, you know." Ellington opened his mouth to interrupt, but Hope plowed on, her words tumbling out in a rush. "For instance, I know for a fact that the chemical compound of a unicorn horn won't work. There's way too much magic in those things. It'd blow up whatever you put it in. You need the same type of compound you find, say, in a flying broom." Ellington raised his hands in mock surrender, his expression softening. I give. You're right. You're way smarter than I ever thought. I'm throwing in the towel. Let's go grub. I'm suddenly starving. What's on the menu? Chicken fingers? Burgers? Hope's anger dissipated as quickly as it had come, replaced by a mischievous grin. Nah. Pizza. Tell you what, you fly, I'll buy. You'll buy? Ellington's eyebrows shot up in surprise. I'm kidding. I'm 13 and broke. You're buying too. Ellington heaved an exaggerated sigh, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Come on, smarty pants, let's go. He slung an arm around Hope's shoulders, steering her towards the door. As they stepped out into the hallway, their laughter echoed off the walls, a moment of levity amidst the weight of their responsibilities. Ellington and Hope sat across from each other in the cozy cafe, steaming pizza between them. The aroma of melted cheese and savory toppings wafted through the air, mingling with the chatter of the other patrons. Hope leaned back in her chair, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Isn't it nice to be out of the lab? She asked, her eyes sparkling with mirth. Ellington shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting around the room. It's a little uncomfortable, actually. I never really feel like I fit in anywhere else but the lab. Hope's expression sobered, her brow furrowing slightly. Feelings are tricky things, Elle. For instance, I sometimes feel like Mom's reaching out to me and not really dead. Ellington's head snapped up, his eyes widening in disbelief. What do you mean? You're kidding, right? You mean like she's reaching out from the dead? Like a zombie? Hope rolled her eyes, a hint of exasperation in her voice. No, dumb, not a zombie. More like she's guiding me. Almost like she's not really dead. Remember that dream I had the other night? Ellington nodded slowly, his expression growing somber. Yeah, you were scared to death and crying your eyes out. I wasn't crying because I was scared, Hope insisted, her voice rising slightly. It wasn't a nightmare either. Ellington leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. You told me you saw the train in the ocean, that bodies, personal effects, and other stuff were floating in the current. Hope's eyes misted over, her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, I did see all that, but I wasn't scared, Elle. I've woken up from that same dream hundreds of times for the past 5 years. What made me cry was Mom's voice. I heard her say, I'm in a better place now. Hope, don't cry. We'll be together again. A single tear rolled down Hope's cheek, glistening in the soft light of the cafe. It was like she was speaking to me, like she wasn't really dead. When I woke up, I really expected to see her coming into my room to hug me back to sleep. Ellington's expression softened, his hand reaching across the table to cover Hope's. Hope. That train shot into the open ocean at over 200 miles an hour at around 250 feet deep. No one survived that accident. He paused, his gaze falling on the delicate rosary that hung around Hope's neck. I see you still carry the rosary she bought you when we went to Italy. As long as you hold on to your faith, you're absolutely right. You will see her again. Hope shook her head, frustration creeping into her voice. That's not what I mean, Elle. I don't know how else to explain it other than she was talking to me. Ellington's brow furrowed, his tone growing serious. Does she always speak to you? I mean, the last couple hundred times you dreamed it. What did she say? Stop being a jerk, Elle. I'm serious. Don't you miss her too? Hope's words came out in a rush, her eyes flashing with anger. Ellington sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'm being serious, Hope. You said you've had that same dream hundreds of times. I'm just trying to figure out what was so different about this one. Of course I miss her. When she died, so did our family. I went back to school and you got shipped out the opposite direction to Ridgewood. It's been nothing but holidays and summer since then. Hope's shoulders slumped, her anger dissipating as quickly as it had come. I can't help it, Elle. And I don't understand it either. It scares me. And you're the only person I can talk to. I still miss her. My heart aches. I just want one more hug. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of their shared grief. Outside, the world continued to move, oblivious to the pain that consumed the two siblings. But in that moment, in the quiet of the cafe, they clung to each other, the only lifelines they had left in a sea of sorrow. Ellington fidgeted nervously at his desk, his notes scattered before him as the male student droned on at the front of the class. He could feel eyes boring into him, and he glanced up, his gaze locking with Kelly's. The curly-haired blonde, a fixture in the popular crowd, smiled at him, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Hey, Ellington, she whispered, leaning closer. You think I can borrow that? He followed her pointing finger to the gold pen resting on his desk. Sure, he mumbled, handing it over, his palms slick with sweat. Thank you, Kelly purred, her fingers brushing his as she took the pen. Ellington! The teacher's voice cut through the room, but Ellington's eyes remained fixed on Kelly, his heart pounding in his chest. Oh, Ellington! The teacher's exasperated tone finally broke through his reverie. He glanced around, his cheeks burning as he realized the entire class was staring at him. Kelly caught his eye, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Good luck, she mouthed, giving him an encouraging nod. Ellington's eye twitched as he gathered his papers, his hands shaking as he made his way to the front of the room. He could feel the weight of their gazes, the heat of their judgment as he began to speak, his voice cracking with nerves. Later at the lockers, Ellington slammed the metal door shut, his frustration boiling over. He turned to find Kelly standing there, a knowing smile on her face. Here's your pen back, she said, holding out the gold instrument. Oh, thanks, Ellington stammered, taking it from her. You sure you don't need it? Kelly shook her head, her curls bouncing. No, it looks pretty expensive. Oh, and by the way, you didn't do that bad. Ellington adjusted his books, his heart soaring at her words. But by the time he looked up, she was gone, disappearing into the crowded hallway. That night, in the solitude of his room, Ellington hunched over his computer, his brow furrowed in concentration as he worked on his alternative fuel theory. Shit, thorium. What are its properties? He muttered, opening a new tab and typing furiously. He scanned the results, his eyes darting back and forth as he absorbed the information. Okay, let's find out a little more about you, he murmured, scribbling notes on a pad beside him. Hours passed, the only sound the clicking of keys and the scratching of his pen. Ellington glanced at his phone, his eyes widening as he saw the time. 3:30? Man, time flies. He saved his work and opened a new tab, his fingers hovering over the keys. Okay, what am I looking for? He wondered aloud, typing in the URL of a popular dating site. Ellington scrolled through the images of women, his eyes lingering on the ones with dark hair and smoldering gazes. He filled out the questionnaire, his voice low as he read the prompts aloud. I like brown hair, dark eyes, and hips, he mused, typing in his preferences. Describe myself. I'm an indoor person, quiet, and enjoy reading, chemistry, and math. I speak a little French and Spanish, but mostly English. In my spare time, I like to run and play video games. He paused, his cursor blinking on the screen. Hold on. Ellington opened a new tab, his fingers flying over the keys as he typed, "Sexy Latinas like it big." The screen filled with images of scantily clad women, their curves on full display. Ellington clicked on one, his breath catching in his throat. I can look for something more steady tomorrow, he murmured, his eyes glued to the screen. Let's get through tonight first. The glow of the monitor cast shadows across his face as he lost himself in the fantasy, his loneliness momentarily forgotten in the rush of desire. But deep down, he knew it was a temporary fix, a band-aid on a gaping wound. Tomorrow he would face the world again, his heart aching for a connection that seemed forever out of reach. Hope wandered along the private beach, her bare feet sinking into the sun-warmed sand. The salty breeze whipped through her hair as she waded into the water, the cool waves lapping at her knees. Despite the idyllic surroundings, a sense of restlessness gnawed at her, a longing for connection that the vast expanse of the ocean couldn't fill. With a sigh, she turned back towards the house, her steps heavy as she made her way to her father's private lab. She found Daniel hunched over his machines, his back to the door, his attention consumed by the intricate mechanisms before him. "Hi, Dad," Hope called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Daniel remained focused, his hands moving deftly over the controls. "Dad!" Hope tried again, louder this time. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes taking a moment to focus on his daughter. "What do you need, Hope?" Hope shifted uncomfortably, her hands twisting together. "I'm bored and wanted to talk to you. Can we go do something?" Daniel frowned, his gaze already drifting back to his work. "How can you be bored? You have your own beach. Or you can take one of the carts around the grounds, go exploring, or ask Alexia to take you someplace. I'm busy working." Undeterred, Hope stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Alexia isn't here. She's running errands, but I don't want her. I wanted to see if we could do something today. Dad, I haven't seen you in months. I haven't been home since Christmas." Daniel blinked, as if realizing the passage of time for the first time. "Has it been that long? Seems like you were just here. How's everything going?" Hope hesitated, her voice trembling slightly. "Things are okay, but not okay. School's going all right. I have a lot of friends. I want to come home, though. And I had another dream about Mom. That's what I wanted to talk with you about." She peered around him, trying to catch a glimpse of his latest project. "What are you working on?" Daniel moved quickly, positioning himself between Hope and the machine, blocking her view. A flash of light erupted behind him, bathing the lab in an eerie glow. "What is that? That's cool!" Hope exclaimed, her eyes wide with curiosity. Daniel's jaw tightened, frustration seeping into his voice. "It's classified, Hope. You didn't see anything. What do you want?" Hope's shoulders slumped, her excitement deflating. "I just told you. Didn't you hear anything I said? You should have on a pair of the UV glasses for something like that, Dad. They're in the drawer under the centrifuge over there. You want me to bring them to you?" Daniel rubbed the bridge of his nose, his patience wearing thin. "No, Hope. I'm good without the glasses. Listen, I'm glad to hear school's going well and that you have a lot of friends. You can't come home because your school isn't here. Your mom has been dead for some time now. Daddy's busy, Hope. Can we talk later this evening? Can you please go find something to do? Here, take some money and go find Alexia. I told you she isn't here, Hope protested, her voice small. Daniel reached for a scrap of paper and a pencil, thrusting them towards her. I'll text you her number, and you can call her. Write your cell number here. Hope scribbled the digits, her hand shaking slightly as she took the offered money. We can talk later tonight, Daniel promised, his attention already drifting back to his work. Okay, Hope whispered, the word catching in her throat. She turned and fled the lab, the heavy door slamming behind her, the sound echoing through the empty halls of the estate. Tears stung her eyes as she made her way back to the beach, the vastness of the ocean mirroring the emptiness in her heart. She longed for the warmth of her mother's embrace, for the connection she once shared with her father, but both seemed lost to her now, swallowed up by the relentless march of time and the all-consuming nature of grief. The full moon hung heavy in the night sky, its silvery light casting an ethereal glow over the Del Mar estate. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, their fronds rustling like whispered secrets. Waves lapped at the shore, the rhythmic sound a soothing lullaby in the stillness of the night. Hope stood at the edge of the water, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I'm coming, Mom," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crashing waves. "I'll see you again real soon." With a determined set to her jaw, she turned towards the lab, her pace quickening with each step. Reaching into her pocket, she withdrew Daniel's keys, the metal cool against her skin. The lock clicked open, and she slipped inside, disarming the alarm with practiced ease. "I know you're here," she murmured, her eyes scanning the dimly lit space. "Where did he hide you?" At the back of the lab, a door beckoned. Hope pushed it open, her heart pounding in her chest. With a flick of a switch, the room burst into light, revealing the object of her search. "Ha! There you are!" Hope's voice echoed in the cavernous space as she approached the capsule. It hovered silently above the ground, its diamond shape gleaming in the artificial light. Two triangles with rounded edges joined at the bottom, creating a sleek, futuristic design. Hope circled the device, her fingers trailing over its smooth surface. Not a single blemish marred its perfection, as if it had been crafted by otherworldly hands. "This is awesome," she breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "I gotta get in. How do I use it? There has to be a door." She rummaged through Daniel's desk, her frustration mounting with each empty drawer. Leaning back in the chair, she spotted a recessed drawer hidden beneath the desk. With trembling fingers, she slid it open, revealing a metal bracelet with a unique stone. The stone was smooth, its surface cool to the touch. Hope slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, gasping as it adjusted to fit her perfectly. As she approached the capsule, the stone began to glow, its light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. The capsule responded, an invisible seam splitting open along one of its edges. Hope stepped inside, her breath catching in her throat as the machine flickered to life. "Hello, Mr. Del Mar," a disembodied voice greeted her. "Where is your destination?" "This is awesome," Hope whispered to herself, her eyes darting around the interior of the capsule. "My destination? What are you? How do you work?" The voice repeated its query, the words echoing in the confined space. "Where's your destination?" The door slid shut, sealing Hope inside. Oh, she muttered, a flicker of unease creeping up her spine. "Searching," the voice intoned. "I don't recognize that destination. I want to go to my mom," Hope blurted out, her voice trembling. Outside the lab, Daniel strode towards the door, his brow furrowed in confusion. He reached for his wallet, fumbling for the keycard that would grant him entry. The lock beeped angrily at him, flashing red with each failed attempt. "What the hell's going on?" Daniel growled, his frustration mounting. "Come on!" He rifled through his wallet, his heart sinking as he realized the keycard was missing. "Shit! Where's my key?" As he stood there glaring at the unyielding door, it suddenly swung open, revealing Ellington on the other side. "Sorry, Dad," he said, his voice tinged with surprise. "I didn't get you, did I?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, suspicion clouding his features. "No. How'd you get in there?" Ellington shrugged, his expression guarded. "The door was cracked when I got here. I thought you were here and just left it open for me." "Ellington, why would I leave the door to a lab that has highly classified tech in it open?" Daniel snapped, his temper flaring. "Did Alexia fix you an idiot empanada this morning?" "I don't know," Ellington retorted, his own frustration evident. "Like I said, I got here and it was open. I told you yesterday that I wanted to come in and do some work. I was surprised to not see you." "Did it look like anything was stolen? Disturbed?" Daniel demanded, his voice tight with anxiety. Ellington shook his head. "I didn't look around for anything. Like I said, I thought you left it open for me. So I'd say no, nothing was disturbed." Without another word, Daniel pushed past Ellington, his mind racing as he stepped into the lab. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. And he had a sinking suspicion that it had everything to do with the capsule and the secrets it held. Daniel's heart raced as he took in the sight of the open door to the non-disrupt room. His eyes darted to his desk, widening at the sight of the empty hidden drawer, its contents conspicuously absent. Hope's phone lay abandoned on the surface, a silent accusation. With a growing sense of dread, Daniel woke his computer, his fingers flying over the keys as he accessed the security recordings. The grainy footage confirmed his worst fears. Hope, his own daughter, had breached the lab's defenses. "Good for nothing kids," Daniel spat, his voice dripping with venom. "I hate them. I should have never had them." The sound of footsteps drew his attention, and he spun around to see Ellington entering the lab. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" Ellington asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Daniel's jaw clenched, his frustration boiling over. "What?" "Yeah, everything's fine. What do you want?" Ellington held up his hands, taken aback by his father's hostility. "I don't want anything. I was just checking in to see if everything is good." "Yeah, it's fine," Daniel snapped, his tone brooking no argument. "I got things to do, so if you're done, just be done. I have work to do." Ellington retreated, the lab door swinging shut behind him with a resounding thud. Daniel slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. "Why'd I let that woman talk me into kids?" he muttered, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Nothing but a burden." The drive to the Martech offices passed in a blur, Daniel's mind consumed with the implications of Hope's actions. He parked in his designated spot, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous parking garage as he strode towards the elevators. Inside the building, he made his way to his office, his face a mask of grim determination. He shed his coat and briefcase, sinking into his chair as he logged onto his computer. The security feed from his home lab filled the screen, the images searing themselves into his brain. He watched, his hands clenched into fists, as Hope used the capsule to transport, the device's otherworldly glow casting an eerie light on her face. Daniel's mind raced, possibilities and scenarios playing out in rapid succession. Rising from his desk, he stalked towards the lab, his heart pounding in his chest. He approached a nondescript metal door, his badge granting him access with a soft beep. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, ensuring no prying eyes witnessed his actions. The door swung open, revealing a secret room bathed in darkness. With a flick of a switch, the space burst into light, revealing rows upon rows of capsules, their sleek forms gleaming in the artificial glow. Daniel stood at the threshold, his eyes sweeping over the array of devices, each one a testament to his brilliance and his hubris. Hope's actions had set in motion a chain of events he couldn't control, and the weight of his secrets threatened to crush him. He had to find her, had to bring her back before she stumbled upon the truth. The truth about the capsules, about the power they held, and about the lengths he had gone to keep it all hidden. Daniel's hand curled around the cool metal of the nearest capsule, his reflection distorted in its mirrored surface. He had created these devices to change the world, to bend reality to his will. But now, As he stared into the abyss of his own making, he realized the true cost of his ambition. With a heavy heart, he activated the capsule, the device humming to life beneath his fingertips. He had no choice but to follow Hope, to bring her back from the brink before it was too late. For if the truth were to be revealed, it would destroy not only his life's work, but the very fabric of his family and the world as he knew it. Ellington sat hunched over his computer, his eyes glued to the dating website that filled the screen. The glow of the monitor cast shadows across his face, highlighting the lines of tension that creased his brow. Suddenly, a loud slam echoed through the house, jolting him from his thoughts. He rose from his chair, his footsteps heavy as he made his way down the stairs. "Dad, what are you doing?" he called out, his voice tinged with confusion. Daniel emerged from the hallway, a large, covered object in tow. "Help me with this," he grunted, his face flushed with exertion. Ellington's eyes widened, surprise etched on his features. "Sure. Which side?" "Over here." Daniel pointed, his finger jabbing the air with urgency. Ellington rushed to the back of the object, his hands gripping the smooth surface as he helped his father maneuver it into the lab. Once inside, he stepped back, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. "So, what now?" With a flourish, Daniel yanked the cover away, revealing the sleek, gleaming form of the capsule. Ellington's jaw dropped, his eyes bulging in awe. "Wow. This is the capsule for transporting," Daniel explained, his voice tight with tension. "What?" Ellington shook his head, confusion clouding his features. Daniel placed a hand on Ellington's back, steering him towards the machine. "We don't have much time." Ellington dug in his heels, his brow furrowed with frustration. "You have to explain yourself." "There's no time," Daniel snapped, his tone brooking no argument. Ellington's temper flared, his eyes flashing with anger. "Dad! What's going on? Tell me or I'm leaving!" Daniel's shoulders slumped, defeat etched on his face. "Hope is gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Ellington demanded, his voice rising. "Let's go get her." "That's what I'm trying to do," Daniel said, his words clipped and sharp. Ellington stared at his father, bewilderment and disbelief warring on his face. "She traveled through time," Daniel continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is a time machine." Ellington swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. He took a step back, his mind reeling with the implications of his father's words. "So this is why you need to go now," Daniel urged, his tone bordering on desperation. Ellington held up his hands, his head shaking back and forth. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute." He took a deep breath, his eyes locked on the capsule. "I don't know the first thing about this machine, let alone how to travel through time." He paused, his brow furrowed in thought. "I'm going to need some time to think about this." With that, he turned on his heel and strode out of the lab, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. "Ellington, you get back here right now," Daniel called after him, his voice cracking with emotion. But Ellington was gone, the lab door swinging shut behind him with a resounding thud. Daniel stood alone, surrounded by the fruits of his labors, the weight of his secrets pressing down on him like a physical force. He stared at the exit, his eyes hollow and haunted. Hope was lost, trapped somewhere in the vast expanse of time, and Ellington, his only hope of finding her, had walked away. Daniel's hand curled into a fist, his knuckles turning white with the force of his grip. He had to find a way to convince Ellington to help him, to make him understand the gravity of the situation. For if he failed, if hope was lost forever, it would be more than just his own life that unraveled. It would be the fabric of his family, of his very existence, torn asunder by the weight of his own hubris and the secrets he had fought so hard to keep. Ellington wandered along the shoreline, his footsteps heavy in the soft sand. The crash of the waves and the salty tang of the ocean air did little to soothe his troubled mind. He spotted a large rock jutting out from the beach and clambered up its rough surface, settling himself upon its crest. He lay back, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of the night sky. The stars twinkled above him, cold and distant, offering no comfort to his weary soul. Ellington's thoughts drifted to his father, to the weight of the secret that now hung between them. "Grant me patience with my father," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the roar of the surf. "He's not an easy man, but as a good son, I must obey him." His mind turned to Hope, his beloved sister, lost somewhere in the labyrinth of time. "Hope, if you're out there, please make this trip an easy one," he pleaded, his words carried away on the salty breeze. Ellington lay there for what seemed like an eternity, his eyes tracing the constellations above, his mind racing with the enormity of the task that lay ahead. The stars blurred and shifted, the sky lightening with the first blush of dawn. As the sun crested the horizon, painting the world in shades of gold and pink, Ellington stirred, his body stiff and sore from a night spent on the unyielding rock. He sat up, a groan escaping his lips as he stretched his aching muscles. His mind felt foggy, his thoughts sluggish and disjointed. The events of the previous night came rushing back, the weight of his father's revelation hitting him like a physical blow. Ellington took a deep breath, the salty air filling his lungs and clearing his head. He knew what he had to do, knew that he couldn't turn his back on his family, on Hope. With a heavy sigh, he slid down from the rock, his feet sinking into the cool sand. He turned towards the house, his steps slow but purposeful. As he walked, the sun climbed higher in the sky, its warmth chasing away the chill of the night. Ellington's mind raced, scenarios and possibilities playing out in his head like a never-ending film reel. He had no idea what lay ahead, no clue as to the dangers and challenges he would face. But he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to bring Hope back, to mend the fractures in his family, and set right the wrongs of the past. With each step, Ellington felt his resolve grow stronger, his determination hardening into an unbreakable force. He would face the unknown, would brave the perils of time itself, for the sake of those he loved. And as he reached the house, the sun now high in the sky, he knew that he was ready to take on the mantle of responsibility and face whatever lay ahead. For in that moment, Ellington understood that family was everything, and that no sacrifice was too great when it came to protecting those he held dear. Daniel lay slumped over his desk, a pile of papers scattered beneath him, the capsule looming in the background. Ellington entered the lab, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. "Dad?" he called out, his voice tinged with concern. When Daniel didn't stir, Ellington crouched beside him, shaking his shoulder gently. "Dad, get up!" Daniel's eyes fluttered open, confusion etched on his face as he took in his surroundings. "Hey, El," he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. "What are you doing here so early?" He glanced at his watch, his brow furrowing as he tried to make sense of the time. Ellington straightened, his expression resolute. "I'm ready." "Ready for what?" Daniel asked, still groggy. "To find Hope," Ellington replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I'm doing this for her and no one else." Daniel nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his features. "Okay, let's travel through time," Ellington declared, his words hanging heavy in the air. Moments later, the capsule hummed to life, its gears whirring and displays flickering. Ellington sat inside, his eyes wide as he took in the array of buttons and controls. Daniel hunched over his computer, his fingers flying across the keys as he formulated an algorithm. "What's taking so long?" Ellington asked, impatience creeping into his voice. "Patience, Ellington," Daniel admonished, his gaze never leaving the screen. "I'm receiving data from the capsule Hope took." Ellington leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "When do you think she went?" "From my calculations, it looks like the 1800s, Daniel replied, his voice taut with tension. 1800s? Ellington echoed, disbelief coloring his tone. It's not going to be possible for me. My clothes, money. I mean, how are we going to pull this off without them knowing I don't belong there? Daniel reached under his desk, pulling out a weathered duffel bag. He tossed it to Ellington, who caught it with a surprised grunt. As he unzipped the bag, his eyes widened in amazement. How do you... Don't worry about it. Daniel cut him off, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You're all set. You will fit in perfectly. Ellington grinned, his excitement palpable. Moments later, he emerged from the capsule, dressed in full cowboy regalia, a crisp dress shirt, a fitted vest, a long jacket, scuffed boots, and a wide-brimmed hat. Daniel's eyes sparkled with amusement. Well, I'll be damned. Ellington twirled, the tails of his coat flaring out behind him. What do you think? You look like a real cowboy, Daniel chuckled, shaking his head in wonderment. Ellington hefted the duffel bag, its weight reassuring in his grip. Guess I have everything I need in this bag. Am I ready? Yeah, Daniel confirmed, his expression sobering. You just need to get in, and I'll set the trigger. Ellington climbed back into the capsule, settling himself in the cramped space. Daniel leaned in, his face inches from Ellington's. According to Hope's transport settings, she went back to 1865 to be exact. 1865, Ellington repeated, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Are you certain? Ellington, of course I am, Daniel scoffed, rolling his eyes. Ellington hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. Is there anything I need to know before? Nope, Daniel interrupted, his tone brisk. You've got everything in the duffel bag. He reached into the capsule, his fingers deftly setting Ellington's destination. Pressing a small white remote into his son's hand, Daniel explained. Take this trigger. It's the transparency remote. Transparency? Ellington asked, confusion clouding his features. Daniel sighed, exasperation creeping into his voice. Ellington, quit acting like you don't know any of this. The capsule becomes invisible. This remote will make it so. He pointed to a green button on the console, its surface worn smooth with use. Now you're wasting time. When I close these doors, hit this button. Ellington nodded, his jaw set with determination. Daniel stepped back, his hand on the door. Good luck, kid, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. As the door clicked shut, Ellington took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. How am I wasting time? He muttered to himself. I'm in a time machine. Okay, you can do this. He closed his eyes, his finger hovering over the green button. With a final exhale, he pressed down, and the capsule sprang to life, shaking and whirring with a deafening roar. It rose from the ground, spinning faster and faster until it vanished in a blinding flash of light. Daniel stumbled back, his hand flying to his mouth in astonishment. The lab fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. Ellington was gone, hurtling through time to an unknown fate, and all Daniel could do was wait and pray that his son would find Hope and bring her back safely. For in that moment, as the echoes of the capsule's departure faded into memory, Daniel realized that the fate of his family, and perhaps the world itself, rested on the shoulders of a young man in a cowboy hat, armed with nothing more than a duffel bag and a desperate hope. The capsule shuddered violently, its metal frame groaning under the strain of temporal displacement. Ellington clung to the console, his knuckles white, his jaw clenched against the bone-jarring vibrations. Suddenly the shaking ceased, the abrupt stillness almost as unsettling as the chaos that had preceded it. With trembling fingers, Ellington jabbed at the door release button, his heart pounding in his chest. The capsule door hissed open, revealing a landscape that was both familiar and utterly alien. Ellington stepped out onto the sun-baked earth, his boots kicking up puffs of dust. The air shimmered with heat, the horizon wavering like a mirage. In the distance, a lone figure crouched behind a weathered rock, his eyes fixed on the strange apparition that had materialized before him. Hours later, As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire, Osvaldo, the Mexican renegade, dragged Ellington into a hidden cave, his grip rough and unyielding. Ellington stumbled, his eyes wide with fear, as Osvaldo's fists slammed into his face, the blows sending stars exploding behind his eyelids. The cold kiss of a knife pressed against Ellington's throat, the blade biting into his skin. Osvaldo's breath was hot on his face, his eyes glittering with menace. "Where did you come from?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. "Nowhere," Ellington gasped, his heart hammering against his ribs. Osvaldo's lips twisted in a snarl. "I've seen you appear from the sky." "No, you haven't," Ellington insisted, his voice trembling. "Are you calling me a liar?" Osvaldo's grip tightened, the knife drawing a thin line of blood. Ellington remained silent, his eyes locked on the bandit's face. "'Cause I'm not, you know," Osvaldo continued, his tone almost conversational. "I never lie. Give me that machine." "I can't," Ellington whispered, his voice cracking. "Why?" Osvaldo demanded, his eyes narrowing. "Because I'm not supposed to be here long," Ellington replied, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm looking for my sister." Osvaldo's fist connected with Ellington's jaw, the impact snapping his head back. The world went black, the pain fading into merciful oblivion. When Ellington came to, he found himself lying beside a crackling fire, the scent of cooking meat and beans filling the air. Osvaldo crouched nearby, stirring a battered pot, his expression inscrutable. "Why did you spare me?" Ellington asked, his voice hoarse. Osvaldo shrugged, his eyes never leaving the pot. "I couldn't get your machine to work." Ellington glanced at the capsule, a laugh bubbling up in his throat. "So you're making me dinner because you couldn't start the capsule?" "Yes," Osvaldo replied, his tone matter-of-fact. He handed Ellington a plate of food, the aroma making his stomach growl. "Thank you," Ellington murmured, taking the offered meal. As they ate, Osvaldo fixed Ellington with a piercing stare. "So, tell me about it." "Me or the machine?" Ellington asked, his mouth full. Osvaldo's gaze hardened and Ellington swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. He began to speak, the words spilling out in a torrent. "I'm from a time 300 years in the future. I am a mechanical engineer. My dad built those capsules. My sister, who's a teenager, stole one of them and traveled through time. I was somewhat forced to use another capsule to find her. My dad said she may be in this time period. That's why I'm here." Osvaldo stared at him, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I know how that sounds, but it's the truth," Ellington insisted, setting down his plate. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Osvaldo, is it? How about we make a deal? You help me while I'm here and I'll take you back with me. But this means you cannot beat me up, steal my stuff, and most definitely not steal my capsule." Osvaldo considered the offer, his eyes narrowing. With a grunt, he wiped his hands on his clothes and stuck out his hand. Ellington hesitated for a moment before grasping it, sealing the bargain. "Let's get some sleep," Osvaldo said, stretching out beside the fire. "You're gonna need it." As the bandit's breathing deepened, Ellington reached into his jacket, his fingers closing around the transparency remote. With a press of a button, the capsule shimmered and vanished, blending seamlessly into the desert landscape. Ellington lay back, his eyes drifting shut, his mind racing with the challenges that lay ahead. He was a stranger in a strange land, bound by a tenuous alliance with a man who could just as easily slit his throat as help him. But he had no choice. Hope's life hung in the balance, and he would do whatever it took to find her and bring her home. Even if it meant risking everything he had ever known and venturing into a world he could scarcely comprehend. For in that moment, as the stars wheeled overhead and the fire burned low, Ellington knew that the true journey had only just begun. Ellington awoke with a start, his eyes flying open to find Osvaldo's face mere inches from his own. The bandit's dark eyes glittered in the early morning light, his expression urgent. Morning, Ellington mumbled, his heart still racing from the sudden awakening. Osvaldo's words tumbled out in a rush, his voice low and insistent. We have to get out of here. Some of my people from down south are headed up this way. You stick out like a sore thumb. They'll be all over you. Ellington sat up, his brow furrowed with concern. Where do you suggest I go? Osvaldo gestured vaguely to the west, his hand cutting through the air. The closest town is about 10 miles that way. Ellington's eyes widened, his mind calculating the distance. That's a pretty far walk. A hint of a smile played at the corners of Osvaldo's mouth. You can take one of my horses. Horses? Ellington repeated, surprise coloring his tone. Yeah, they're back that way. Behind the rock, Osvaldo replied, jerking his thumb over his shoulder. Take the light brown one. His name is Frijoles. Moments later, Ellington stood beside the horse, his hands fumbling with the straps as he secured his bag to the saddle. The animal snorted softly, its tail swishing in the cool morning breeze. Osvaldo watched him work, his expression unreadable. I will be up that way in about a week. I'll find you to pick up my horse. He paused, his eyes narrowing. Take good care of her. Ellington met the bandit's gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Thank you, Osvaldo, he said, his voice sincere. They shook hands, the gesture oddly formal in the rugged wilderness. With a final nod, Osvaldo turned and strode away, his figure soon swallowed up by the vast expanse of the desert. Ellington turned to the horse, his hand resting on its flank. I guess it's just me and you, Frijoles, he murmured, his voice barely audible above the whisper of the wind. With a deep breath, he swung himself into the saddle, his body settling into the unfamiliar rhythm of the horse's gait. The sun climbed higher in the sky as they set off, the landscape stretching out before them in an endless sea of sand and scrub. Ellington's mind raced as they rode, his thoughts drifting to hope and the daunting task that lay ahead. He had no idea where to begin his search, no clue as to what dangers lurked in this untamed land. But he had no choice. He had to find her, had to bring her back to their own time before it was too late. The horse's hooves kicked up clouds of dust as they pressed on, the sun beating down on Ellington's back. Sweat trickled down his face, stinging his eyes, but he barely noticed, his focus fixed on the horizon and the unknown that lay beyond. Hours passed, the monotony of the ride broken only by the occasional gust of wind or the distant cry of a circling hawk. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Ellington spotted a thin wisp of smoke rising in the distance. His heart leaped in his chest, a flicker of hope igniting within him. The town. It had to be. He urged Frijoles forward, his eyes fixed on the promise of civilization and the chance to catch his breath and plan his next move. But even as he rode, a sense of unease gnawed at the back of his mind. He was a stranger in a strange land, a man out of time, and he knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. Yet he had no choice. He had to press on, had to find hope and bring her home, no matter the cost. For in that moment, as the sun sank below the horizon and the stars began to wink to life overhead, Ellington knew that his destiny lay not in the future he had left behind, but in the wild, untamed past that stretched out before him, waiting to be claimed.